We'll be starting in just a few minutes at 6:05. Good evening. Thank you for everybody for joining us. Before we get started, I would like to suggest that you put your screen on speaker view. Up in the right-hand corner, there's some dots, and if you click on them, one of the options is speaker view. That will let you see full screen the speaker who is speaking and our honorees, as well as a special guest speaker. Thank you for joining us this evening and for supporting the Massachusetts Women's Political Caucus celebration of elected women of color. My name is Pam Berman. I'm the president of Massachusetts Women's Political Caucus. It is our pleasure to honor 3 outstanding elected women of color who are not only trailblazers themselves, but also have made significant contributions on behalf of their communities and in underrepresented spaces. Mayor Yvonne Spicer of Framingham, Boston City Councilor Lydia Edwards, and Pittsfield City Councilor Helen Moon. The MWPC is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization whose mission is to increase the number of women in elective office and appointed to public policy positions. We recruit, train, and seek to elect qualified women to public office in order to achieve parity. Our goal is to offer programs to increase the interest of women of all ages in the political process and help them be successful in the political arena. 100% of the proceeds from this fundraiser this evening will go to the MWPC's Educational Fund, which will enable us to create more programs and outreach to increase civic engagement among women. Thank you each for attending and supporting MWPC. Thank you to our sponsors who enabled us to perform this important work. They are Gold sponsor Blue Cross Blue Shield, Bronze sponsor Eastern Bank, benefactors Robbins Kaplan and Ipswich Ale Brewery, and supporters Dempsey, Lucy and Associates, Stop and Shop, Rand V, the Barbara Lee Foundation, and Kumsky and Levin. A special thank you to Gail Jackson Blount for her generous donation and always continuing support. 3 of our sponsors kindly donated auction items. We encourage you to bid on these wonderful items tonight. They are a spa day for 2 at Kenyon Ranch, a one-night stay on Friday or Saturday at Seaport Hotel in Boston, and a book signed by the author, Women in the Waiting Room. The auction site can be found in the chat of this program and on the MWPC website. The auction will remain open until tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. when we will notify the winners. Please bid early, often, and large. All proceeds go to the MWPC Education Fund. It is now my pleasure to introduce a surprise guest. This is someone who wanted to extend her congratulations to our 3 outstanding award winners this evening and share some words of wisdom. Our guest is someone who, although a congresswoman with innumerable accomplishments, is known to all simply by her first name. She is a longtime MWPC supporter, having served on the MWPC board before running for office. Our MWPC Political Action Committee endorsed this talented candidate in each race she entered for Boston City Councilor and recommended, and the National Women's Political Caucus endorsed her in both of her congressional races. This Congresswoman is an advocate, a policymaker, an activist, and a survivor. On November 6, 2018, she was elected to represent Massachusetts' 7th Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives, making her the first woman of color to be elected to Congress from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Massachusetts 7th District is the most diverse and most unequal district in the state, requiring a representative whose experiences are reflective of the people. Like many in her district, this Congresswoman has endured numerous hardships throughout her life, and it is because of those experiences that she remains a dedicated advocate. She believes that a diversity of voices in the political process is essential to making policies that benefit more Americans. In 2009, she launched a historic at-large campaign for Boston City Council and won, becoming the first woman of color elected to the council in its 100-year history. On the council, this Congresswoman worked in partnership with residents, advocates, and other elected officials to combat the inequalities and disparities facing the community. By now you have guessed that our guest speaker is our friend and outstanding Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, who will share her thoughts with us.
Family, Congresswoman. Hello, MWPC family. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley here. Thanks to your support all these many years, I can say that. What an honor. Proud to be the Congresswoman representing the Massachusetts 7th Congressional District and grateful for the chance to be able to join you this evening, although I wish it was in person, virtually, to celebrate the work of women of color in electoral politics and the critical contributions of the Massachusetts Women's Political Caucus. At a time when our communities are facing overlapping crises of public health, economic inequality, and systemic racism, we need leaders who believe, just like I do, that the people closest to the pain should be the closest to the power, driving and informing the policy making. Leaders like Mayor Spicer, Councilor Edwards, and Councilor Moon. You know, so often pundits and others like to attribute our electoral victories to magic or a wave, but I think that gives short shrift to our work and our strategy, our intellect and our hustle. If there is a wave, it's not one that we are riding, it's one that we have created, with a groundswell of support and a mandate to lead from our constituents. Now that the election is over, the real work begins. And so I thank you. I thank each of you and my many sisters in service across the Commonwealth for standing in your power and leading us towards that more equitable and just world that we all know is possible. Thank you, and take good care.
Thank you, Ayanna, for those inspiring words. It is my pleasure to introduce our first Public Service Award winner this evening, Mayor Yvonne Spicer. After winning 16 out of 18 precincts in Framingham, Dr. Yvonne Spicer became the very first mayor of Framingham in 2018. She began her career as a teacher in Framingham. Mayor Spicer rose to become the department chair and later accepted a leadership role in the Newton district, where she engaged colleges, universities, and businesses to start new initiatives for her community. She became the vice president for advocacy and educational partnerships for the Museum of Science, building partnerships in STEM education with policymakers, school districts, municipalities, businesses, and other nonprofit organizations. She was appointed by Governor Deval Patrick and reappointed by Governor Baker to be on the Massachusetts STEM Advisory Council. She is also the former advisor to the National Governors Association. Mayor Spicer has been intimately involved in addressing problems in her fast-growing city. She's a hands-on manager who knows the pulse of the community. Her constituents can always reach her, including at her Saturday morning coffees and Framingham coffee shops. It is my pleasure to introduce the effervescent, wonderful Mayor of Framingham, Dr. Yvonne Spicer.
Thank you so much, Pam. I really appreciate that generous introduction. I am a deeply appreciative of my sister in service, Ayanna Presley. She always liked my energy and, and reminds me why we do this work as women of color. It's just a real wonderful reminder. I am so honored to be a part of this award ceremony along with my fellow sisters, Helen and Lydia, who Lydia and I have certainly traversed this journey together. And I am really appreciative of her support and Helen's support along the way. And, when I think about what's happening for us right now in this present moment as a nation, and I think about us as individual cities and towns and how we're working together, and me as the not only the first African American woman ever elected popularly to the office of mayor in the entire state of Massachusetts, but also looking at the daunting work ahead of us with being in a brand new city. We are a baby city. We hear you. So when I became mayor, Framingham became a city, and so now we layer on some of the challenges of dealing with a pandemic, systemic racism, and other issues of economic development that are really intersecting right now, and how we navigate it. And I can honestly say that truly every experience I have had in my professional life has prepared me to be the mayor of this city. And I look at how I use those same skills in so many ways, whether being a classroom teacher and navigating staff and in situations within the community. But I also think my background in science and engineering and understanding, first of all, I believe in the science. So trust the science, people. Please trust the science. But also looking at how to solve problems and being able to dissect the problem and think about it very critically and look for those best opportunities to implement. So when I think about what I've had to pivot to do especially over the last 8 months, from standing up food security programs to doing programs to help with rental assistance and so forth, whether it's support for our seniors and face mask distribution. We've given over 20,000 masks out for free and continue to do so in the city of Framingham to keep our community safe. The executive orders that I have had to put into place, our schools, how do we work well with our school department and superintendent? These are all of the things that we have been doing in the city of Framingham. um, which we are currently in the yellow zone, and really trying very hard to keep ourselves in a different trajectory going the other direction. It's a daunting thing, but it is also the focal point for me right now is how do I keep my community safe? How do I keep a roof over everyone's head and food on the table? And those are some top priorities. And so some of the other things that we still are working on despite this pandemic is how do we build new opportunities in our community for businesses, and how my leadership, my background in science and technology has influenced that. A new company just set up shop here in Framingham called CRISPR, and it's a biotech firm that are working on cures for things like sickle cell anemia. And that's exciting. And so that even despite a pandemic, these good things are happening in this community. And so I look and I say, everything that I bring to this job, I bring my best self. This Brooklyn kid, this kid from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, who was taught at an early age, you don't run away from challenges, you run towards them. And I haven't missed that beat yet, and I still keep trying to figure out what's going to be the next challenge in my life. But right now, I love being the mayor of this city. I am doing my very best to keep leading our city with integrity, with honesty, and doing my very best in order to help all 70,000 of our residents, whether you're documented or undocumented, you matter to me. And whether you're born here or born somewhere else and just came or been here for many years, you matter. And that's the message I try very hard to convey to our citizens. And so to honor me this evening is a testament of my gratitude for the sisterhood, for the support and the love that continues on. I mean, it's approaching 3 years as mayor, so I mean, this time has gone by very quickly, but I also feel that there's been a lot of good things to happen. So I thank you all, and just for this opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you via virtually. And I can't wait till we get back to in person, because I have to say the one thing I miss the most is hugging and seeing people. And I may never get a chance to do that again, but just to be able to have contact with people is so, so critical. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Spicer. We sure hope that you will continue on and be mayor of Framingham for another term. Thank you for those thoughtful and inspiring words. You have been such a great supporter of the MWPC. It's truly an honor to present the Public Service Award to you. And I concur. I can't wait until we can give hugs again, because Mayor Spicer hugs are some of the best.
Thank you, Pam.
It is now my pleasure to introduce our next Public Service Award recipient, Boston City Councilor Lydia Edwards. Councilor Edwards has spent her entire career as an advocate, activist, and as a voice on behalf of society's most vulnerable. She served as the Deputy Director within the Mayor's Office of Housing Stability, where she was responsible for developing and delivering innovative solutions to fight displacement. She brought together all stakeholders, landlords, management companies, housing authorities, and tenants. Councilor Edwards has also worked as a public interest attorney with Greater Boston Legal Services, focusing on labor issues such as fighting for access to unemployment insurance, back wages, fair treatment for domestic workers, and combating human trafficking. She served as the statewide campaign coordinator for the Massachusetts Coalition for Domestic Workers, which advocated for the passage of the Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights. And in 2015, she was named Bostonian of the Year by the Boston Globe. We thought what Lydia promised her constituents was something that was so inspiring that we wanted to share it with you. She said, "I will sustain and improve quality education for every student and take on the chronic underfunding of our education system. I will fight for the homeless and tenants' rights while ensuring property owners and landlords have the resources to stay in place, rehabilitate their properties, and build wealth. I will build up pathways for business owners and hopeful entrepreneurs to bring their talents to our local economy and ensure that when they retire, they can leave their companies in good hands. I will ensure our city leads in efforts to combat climate change, and I will work to make sure every child in the district has a safe and clean park to play in. Finally, I will push City Hall so that District 1 residents have greater control of development in our communities. District 1 could have no better advocate or representative. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the outstanding Boston City Councilor, Lydia Edwards.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and I am honored to receive tonight's recognition. I have to always say to my dear friend, sister in service, Mayor Framingham, Dr. Yvonne Spicer, I always will love the pearls. The pearls are it, and that's always been our joke, because we always said, don't mind the pearls, and then she'd give it to them in such a way. And we actually interviewed for MWPC. Were we together with Kim Janey,
Yes.
hoping you would get your endorsement? And that's how we all met, and we all won our elections that day. So we became forever sisters. And again, speaking to the power of this organization, gathering folks together to advance each other's career, especially women. Helen, I haven't had the chance to get to know you as well, but I have seen your posts, and I've seen your leadership, and I believe we're both city councilors. And so if we both know what it's like at the local level, we know that's where the rubber meets the road. We know how to get things done. No offense to the mayors in the room or the congresswomen in the room, but when district city councilors or city councils in general go from dog parks to the opioid crisis, right, to neighbor disputes, all in 45 minutes. And again, it's something about leading from the grassroots that I love this job so much. I think it's really important that we rest in the moment and in the narrative of why are we celebrating women of color. You know, what's not just what's to celebrate, but what is that essence and the leadership that comes from that. And I honestly have to say, I was trying to think about that. 1 second, I think my phone's going off. Sorry. Sorry about that. When you have women of color at the table, I think one of the first things we do is ask, where are we? Why am I the only one? And the we is really important because we're asking both as women and as people of color. And if you're an immigrant, you're also asking, where are we? If you're a gay and lesbian, you're asking, also part of that we. It's the perspectives that we have all combined in ourselves, is that beautiful word of, intersectionality. It's a very complicated word sounding thing, but the fact is it's a matter of the benefits and burdens that come with being someone different. That's really it. And they can be all combined. And so we ask those questions differently. When we ask who's at the development table, when we ask why aren't the materials in a different language when we're talking about a major development such as Suffolk Downs being the single largest private development in Boston's history. 161 acres of empty land, 10,000 new housing units to be built, and it happened to be majority in my district. And the who is at the table is often driven by our own exclusion and our own messages to us telling us where we don't belong. We oftentimes are the ones who are pushing and opening up doors because of that. And I just wanted to bring that to the table because that is what we're also celebrating, the doors that we've opened up, the people we've supported, the advocacy and the voices that we've given. This is not to say people who aren't women of color don't give those things, but I just know that the more women of color you have at the table, you will be assured those things. I think it's also important to look at how we lead differently in conversations and some of the things celebrating with leadership. Not only was Suffolk Downs a historic mitigation, bringing home, I think, $2.7 million in the next month just to my district, just to East Boston for housing and rent relief, but also demanding of a level of accountability in more than one language and that community lead the 20-year relationship and build out. for this new area. $1 million for just English languages, like English language training, $1 million for job training, predominantly focused on getting to low-wage workers, many of whom are women, and making sure that when this is finally built and this neighborhood is finally there, they are also benefiting from the economics windfall that comes through. Cannabis is another area of leadership and pushing for that. Wherever you stand on it, it is legal now. And the racial harm of the war on drugs, I see this as a moment in the regulations that we're writing to heal, to undo a lot of those harms, and to make sure that people aren't excluded from this industry in a way that perpetuates the systemic racism that put them in jail before are now is putting them in poverty. I think we also see things in terms of who we can help. You know, I was honored to support my sister in service, Trom Nguyen. You know, we know Trom, she is one of the most powerful women I have met, and we worked at Greater Boston Legal Services together. She was writing postcards in Vietnamese during my election and helping me out with the community. And then when she was running the next year, I was one of the first people who said, I'm in, and then came out there and banged on doors and raised money and did what I could to support my dear friend to this day. And it's that kind of back and forth and sisterhood that I think MWPC not only fosters, but encourages. It's one thing to support someone and say, we're honoring Joe Blow because they did a lot of great things. But I hope that a lot of this is also because of the people that I've been able to support, work with, and who supported me in the name of being a woman, in the name of sisterhood. And Pam, I have to say, for years before politics, I knew you. And you have been there. I think WLI, was it? It just, the Institute, Women's Leadership Institute. I was a baby attorney. You were there. And so I have to say thank you. I've never heard the word no from you. I've only heard, how can I lift you up further? You broke the mold in support for women. I look to what you would do, and that's why I stand here today, and I want to thank you so much. But it's also in the people we've also supported. So along with Trom, I recently supported Kip Diggs. He's now the first Black person to represent the Cape and Islands in our state legislature. We flipped the seat, and it was reaching out to women and men and people of color to say, this man is running, look at him. He is worth the investment. So we not only help out women and people of color, we also help out men who are part of the coalition. There's a brotherhood that supports us as women, and that's the investment we also learn to make. All of this I say to simply say, this is about the seeds that we plant and the fruit that we bear, and being able to make sure that this garden is diverse and growing and more inclusive. So tonight, I'm honored to be recognized of being part of that garden, but I also call on all of us to continue to feed that, to support each other, hold each other accountable, and keep pushing. And when Pam sends out the email, respond. And as MWPC needs to grow, we should be there. So thank you so much, and I hope people will support MWPC. Also, shout out to my dear friend Ayanna, former colleague on the City Council. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Lydia. What a wonderful Public Service Award winner and person. We look forward to enjoying your continued success and hopefully your rise in the future to the national level. It's next my great pleasure to introduce our third winner of the Public Service Award tonight, Pittsfield City Councilor Helen Moon. Helen is a registered nurse working in the Fairview Hospital Critical Care Unit and part-time at the Elizabeth Freeman Center, and recently was the Director of Special Projects at the Office of the Berkshire District Attorney. Helen has spent her personal and professional life advocating for the youth and underserved. Prior to moving to the Berkshires, Helen contributed her time with Korean American youth groups, as well as working weekly at a food pantry in Somerville known as Loaves and Fishes. It's a local food pantry that distributes hot meals, groceries, and conversation to homeless individuals, many of whom are veterans. Helen has traveled abroad, teaching English in a youth summer camp in Mexico. Her most impressionable trip was to Ethiopia, where she worked for a summer as the director of a Somalian refugee children's summer program in 2007. It was there that she learned the meaning of leadership through service. While organizing a group of volunteer activists, Helen designed a summer camp for Somalian children ranging in age from 5 to 18 with limited English abilities. Helen was elected to the Pittsfield City Council in 2017. She has been an impassioned advocate, improving the lives of her constituents ever since. It is my pleasure to introduce the talented, effective Councilwoman Helen Moon.
Oh, thank you so much, Pam. I I feel completely out of place here following Dr. Spicer and Councilor Edwards. I actually don't know if Dr. Spicer remembers me, but we met, I think it was back in 2017, and we were both first-time candidates. Dr. Spicer was running for mayor, and I was running for my city council seat, and we were at the same MWPC training, and we sat at the same table, and she left such an impression on me. We exercise of asking our fellow colleagues in the room for money as a way of like generating fundraising. And Dr. Spicer approached me, and I was like, I will give you everything that you asked for, because she was just so. So congratulations to Dr. Spicer and Councilor Edwards. I had the pleasure of meeting at a panel discussion at Tufts University, and I've been following your career a bit, but I think that was the first time that we had met in person. And I don't know how, but I ended up on one of your email lists, and I just remember thinking, you're so impressive, and I need to really step up my game, because I am not I am not doing that. And so it really encouraged and inspired me to step up as a city councilor. It's really very interesting, I think, to have your career or your history read back to you, your biography read back to you, because you live these experiences. And it's not something that I think about every day. You know, like my pathway leading up to this point is not something that I am sitting in my room thinking about and thinking, oh my goodness, I've had these amazing experiences. But I believe in what Dr. Spicer said, where all these experiences are really intertwined in leading me to where I am today. I would never, following Dr. Spicer and Councilor Edwards, I think that they're really charismatic and amazing. And I don't necessarily really have that skill set. What I do think that I bring is an energy to do the work. And so I am not somebody who I consider as a public speaker. I really actually hate recognitions. So this is an awkward feeling for me. And it feels unusual to go to the grocery store and have people come up to me and recognize who I am. But, you know, I remember like waking up on after the presidential election in 2016 and just thinking that there's something that I can do to improve the lives of my fellow community members. And when I ran for office, I didn't know if I would win, and I'm fortunate that I did. But when I looked around me, it felt really lonely. I was the first Asian American elected official in the city of Pittsfield. I'm the first immigrant to be elected in the city of Pittsfield. And it's a lonely place to be. The Berkshires is, we don't have the numbers and the critical mass of people like areas like Boston. And so I felt very alone, and I joined MWPC because it felt like a community of sisterhood that can really support and encourage you and give you tools to be successful. So, you know, I feel very fortunate to be in this position. I spent, I think, the majority of my time on city council trying to find ways where my city council position is very different from Councilor Edwards, where I am not a full-time position and it's a stipend where we work part-time. I have a full-time job. I have 2 full-time jobs, and then I have a council position. And when I think about who gets served in the city of Pittsfield and historically how power is distributed, I really wanted to change that conversation. I made it a point to, when I first started, to send out newsletters that were paper newsletters. And that seems like such a little thing to do, you know, it's just a paper newsletter. I send it to every single door in my ward, Ward 1. And I, regardless of whether you vote for me or you haven't voted for me, whether you are a homeowner or a renter, I wanted to make sure that people had, when I distributed information, I wasn't distributing it to a certain group of people, but I was opening up access to myself as their counselor, but also to their government. The other thing that I really feel was important for me as I move forward was voting with my values. I think on we are very far from being the powerhouse that Boston is. We're a small municipality and we have such financial constraints. And you know, the point of me as a city councilor sitting on the city council and voting for the budget, it's a list of our priorities. This is our social contract with our communities saying, we're going to invest X, Y, and Z into our community to serve you because these are the things that matter. And so I really tried to focus on voting with my values. And so it's been a long journey. And I still have people that approach me and say, nice people, you know, nice, well-intentioned people, but people that approach me and say, you know, you should be voting for the most qualified candidate. And I think that is such an interesting point to make. You know, they know that I sit on I serve as a co-chair for the Berkshire chapter of the MWPC. And they know that I'm very passionate about representation. And so that kind of statement to me, I think, what do you mean by that? Because when I look at the State House, when I look at state legislation, I think it's really impossible that white men especially, are that much more qualified than women and people of color. And yet when we look at the State House, that's how it breaks out to be, right? I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like 75% white men who are sitting in decision-making, power-making decisions at the State House. And so when a statement like that is made, it is the most qualified candidate that should be elected. I think we're not really doing anything. We haven't really done anything to break down the barriers to allow qualified people of color and women to achieve their success. We need to start giving the capacity back to and the power back to the people that deserve these positions. And I believe that women and people of color are by and large left out of that process. And so I'm so thankful for organizations like MWPC that work to make that possible and to really lift up and support and amplify these voices that are absolutely needed at these tables. I also hope to one day also call Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley my friend. I am not able to do that yet, but I hope to one day do that because we stand on her shoulders. I stand on the shoulders of people like Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and in Pittsfield, Mayor Tyre. And, you know, I am so inspired by Dr. Spicer and Councilwoman Edwards. And so I am so honored and thankful to be here today.
Thank you so much, Helen, for those wonderful words of wisdom. And I'm sure people will be standing on your shoulders in the not too distant future. You are lighting a way, as are our other Public Service Award winners and Ayanna, as you mentioned. Thank you so much to each of our Public Service Award winners and Ayanna. I want to thank our board members for their work and their support. A special thank you to our program director, Einar Olmaz, and our interns for their assistance putting this program and fundraiser together. Please remember to bid on our terrific auction items early, often, and big. We also want to invite everyone to join us at our next big event, which is on January 19th at 6 p.m. via Zoom for our annual meeting. Our featured speaker will be LaTasha Brown, a fellow Harvard Kennedy Institute of Government and co-founder with Stacey Abrams of Black Voters Matter. Thank you again to our sponsors, and thank you to each of you for attending. Have a great evening. Good night.